Yeah!
It's Josh Williams here, and welcome to another bonus episode of the One Man Podcast. Today, my guest is comedian and great friend of absolute comedy, all the way from Baltimore, Maryland. We have Mike Storck with us here today.
That's right, and I'm actually wearing clothes.
Are you? Yes.
For a change.
I should have put that in the intro. Mikey's claim to fame is that he's naked all the time, everywhere, even in the Great White North.
Yeah, I get naked at Tim Hortons and the Poutine Shack.
You're actually a huge fan of Poutine, if I'm not mistaken. American from
Absolutely love poutine.
and they don't have it there, right?
No, there's a few like hipster type places that they say, oh, we have authentic Canadian poutine. And my sort of knee jerk reaction to that is always like, I'll be the judge of that. But it's one of those things. It's like just like quinoa or kale, or there's always like something that's like the new food thing, right?
Right.
Or like there's like if you got somebody that's like a crazy snob foodie, they have to have something that they can like sort of point to as, oh, you don't know about this food thing? Oh,
Right.
It's so great. Oh, you don't know about like authentic flash frozen Inuit cod, permafrost.
You painted yourself into a
vegetables.
bit of a corner there.
Yeah,
with the Inuit flash frozen. I'm like, oh, you're running out of options.
The free range Inuit. I don't know.
You haven't had freeze dried seal noses?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like some weird thing that like you had to like scour the globe to find something that, oh, you don't know about that. I win.
Yeah. Well, have you been to those hipster spots that claim to have authentic Canadian poutine?
Yeah.
And how is it?
It's not. I think a lot of places, what they do is they know enough. Like maybe they went to Montreal once or something, and either it's not cheese curds, it's mozzarella, or the fries are frozen Cisco fries, or
It's like chicken gravy instead of the beef gravy or whatever.
Yeah, or like I've seen what a lot of places will do is they'll offer poutine on the menu, but then it's like with gravy and the cheese and the thing, and then peas and potato and squash and quinoa, and it's like no, just do poutine.
Right.
Like do just a garden variety traditional fries, gravy, cheese curds. You know what I mean? It's like you're trying to get all fancy and you can't even master the basic one. You know what I mean?
Right. Maybe that's a strategy so there's someone doesn't like it. Go, well, it's our version. Of course,
Right.
that's not what you would expect because it's our version.
Right. I saw a thing on one of the cooking things on YouTube, and it was like, authentic Mexican poutine, right, recipe. And so I'm looking at it and I watched the video, and it's like nacho. It's like, what about this is actually poutine? Like it's not. There's nothing,
It's like tortilla chips, salsa, and cheese. You're like, that's nachos. That's not poutine.
Yeah, instead of the Quebec gravy, we're going to use nacho cheese and shredded. It's like it's nachos. Like I don't know.
I think it's one of those things that probably. I mean, I haven't been too far, and of course, tried the poutine. We're desensitized to it here because you can get it everywhere.
Right.
But I'm sure it's the same in Montreal, where it's like it's everywhere for smoked meat, because I love Montreal smoked meat.
It's
I
great.
fuck it up every time I go there.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you can go to the worst place in Montreal is still better than the best place anywhere else.
Right. And where would you say the worst place would be?
In Montreal for smoked meat?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Belle Provence or
Haven't had it there.
It's not bad. Belle Provence is like, it's like fast food sort of.
Right.
But,
with the steamy dogs. Whatever. Last time I ate there, I was like, why did I do this to myself?
Right. But it's still not bad. Like I've gotten this smoked meat sandwich and a poutine, and the gravy was a little weak.
Right. That's what I do remember that, as a matter of fact.
But I mean, aside from that, like it's just a decent sandwich. It's decent poutine.
Right.
Like I said, the gravy, could have used a little bit of a kick in the ass.
I think when you're in the mecca of that stuff,
Yeah.
I look at it and go, you're in this land of plenty. How could you be putting this shit out? I think it's, what? I was listening to Bill Burr a while back, and he was saying that in New York, everybody's like, there's only like six or eight great places for New York pizza, but there's a pizza place on every corner.
Right.
So everybody thinks, oh, well, I had pizza in New York. It wasn't that great. It's like, yeah, but you didn't get the staples places. You know what I mean? So, for example, when I'm in Montreal, where I go for smoked meat is I go to Schwartz's.
Right.
Yeah, without question, and I'm never disappointed. It's expensive and it's a pain in the ass to get to.
because it's you can't say it's like eat, get out.
yeah, exactly. He said, "Are you guys done? Get out of the fuck out of here." So now I buy the platters. I don't even get the sandwiches because the sandwiches are like $10 each. I get the platter; it's 20, but I can make like 3 or 4 sandwiches out of it.
Right.
They give you a stack of bread and a bunch of meat. I'm sorry. I hope this is interesting for anybody who's listening, but I don't.
Well, it's interesting to you and I. So
Yeah, I love it.
what?
But the Maine is good across the street.
That's the other one. Yeah, I was going to say the main Dunn's.
Dunn's is great. I can't. How do they fuck it up everywhere else?
I don't. It's one of those things. Like I sometimes wonder if people realize what they've got in front of them. Like you go to Dunn's, and it's like the smoke. Like I got the roast beef club one time. Every time I go to Dunn's, it's like, I'm gonna get a smoked meat and a poutine. Maybe I'll just do fries, but definitely smoked meat. And but then one time I got the roast beef club, and it was great. And it was like, of course, like, but it just, oh, that's my phone.
I thought I heard the George Jetson theme the other day.
Yeah, I made that ringtone a while back, and I'm like, this is actually the perfect ringtone.
Do, 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 do. The old Hanna-Barbera.
But yeah, like, and like I don't really drink that much, so like for me, like food is, like when I'm someplace, like when I come to Ottawa, it's like, I'll go to like Cattleman's, I'll go to like a couple different poutine, like S&G up the street, and then the place down at Costco or the Canadian Tire parking lot,
right?
What else do I do?
That's the one up by Maryville there?
Yeah, right at Maryville. And
do you do the one over by the Mayfair? The little guy who's always asleep in the one up Sunnyside? You go down by Carleton University from the club and up the street?
That's not the one on Bank, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But the
we
little
went
truck
to that
next
one.
one. Yeah. That's not a bad one either.
Yeah, that one was pretty good. The guy down at the market, the Russian guy.
Not familiar with him.
It's decent, but it's like that. People are like, "Oh my God, we always get the poutine after we've had way too much alcohol."
Right.
It's like, well,
that's when you go to McDonald's too.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't really vouch for the poutine if you're like, we're annihilated.
Yeah, we can't taste anything anyways.
Right.
We're just shoveling glop into our face.
Yeah, you could eat salty cardboard and it would be like amazing.
Especially when you're drinking.
Yeah.
So in terms of this week's poutine review, you're a big fan of all the stuff Canadiana, which is great, and we love having you up here. Now you were just here for a series of shows.
Yep, did a week in Ottawa, and then a week in Toronto, followed by the third week in Kingston.
Nice. And how were the shows?
Good. We had obviously it's always great shows here. And then Toronto was good. Good numbers. Crowds were good. Trying to think. I feel like there was one show. I think there was one night we had an audience that was just really slow. And it was like, the MC comes off and he's like, well, looks like we're working tonight. and I was like, yeah, that's kind of what it sounded like. Like he was getting the laughs, but it was like, he had to work for him. They weren't just like meeting him there.
Right.
Kind of thing. And then Kingston, and then, and it was fun too, because it's like I got to work with good comics. Like sometimes you get paired with shitty comics.
Right.
Or good comics that you just don't
enjoy working
or just don't like hanging out with, Like, I mean, I've had that, like, you're on the road and like, the comic's funny, but then like hanging out, you're like, oh, this guy sucks. You know what I mean? Like this dude wants me to put a gun in, I want to put a gun in my mouth or fucking, I don't know, they're an asshole or something. And
right. And that's what a lot of people don't realize about comedy. We haven't talked about it too many times, even in the interviews, but for the most part, a lot of people forget that when we're doing shows for a week out of town, away from home, like you're staying in a living quarters with this other person. So as much as it's like, I can handle, working with them for 2 hours a night. It's not like a coworker situation,
right?
Where you go to work. It doesn't matter if you're 4 or 8 hour shifts. You go home at the end of the day. It's like, no, we work with them and then we go live with them. You know, that's the person you
Yeah.
say
like
good night to and good morning to.
right. You're going to wake up and they're like watching like, whatever, some video and like, 8 o'clock in the morning. And you're like, what the hell are you doing up this early?
Yeah.
Like I remember one time, this was, I forget where we were. It was me and Jocko and, it was like, I don't know, it's like 11, maybe noon. And at the time I was like trying to, exercise and sort of kind of lose weight and get in shape and stuff. And Jocko he's like sitting on the couch and I'm like putting on my running shoes and sweatpants. And he just looks at me and goes, I didn't know you were one of those.
Oh, that's funny.
And I was like, what? And he's like, and he's just, he didn't say anything. And then I realized it's because I look like Mr. like, sporto.
I'm going to go for a run this morning.
Right. And then you guys want to go get some salads and, like eat healthy and exercise. I'm like, no, like
You're looking at the single step of this journey, the
right,
first
like,
step.
Yeah, like you're just looking at the denial phase.
Yeah.
Where I think I'm going to like run all the time or something. But yeah, he was just busting my chops.
That's so funny.
But like, but yeah, and like I've stayed at condos with comics that are just like complete asses, and I'm just, I'm not rude, but if somebody, I won't bite my tongue as much as maybe some like, like some of the Canadian comics are like, well, I just have different lifestyles. I'm like, fuck that guy's a shithead. Fuck him. Like I've told comics, like, pick up your shit. Like I'm not your fucking mommy.
Yeah.
Like I think that's one of the reasons why like Jay and I get along so much. It's like, I'm not always sugarcoating stuff, but the upside is where you stand with me.
That's one of the things too that I kind of respect about the Canadian story. This and that. It's like we all have opinions. We're all sugar plums and all this on the outside, but then we're like, that fucking guy's a dick, eh? Like we've got that in the back of our heads. I do enjoy hanging out with people where I know where I stand with them.
Yeah, because it's like if somebody's always happy and like Alistair, right? Like he's a nice guy. Like he's always positive and stuff, and that's great. But it's like, come on, man, you got to get mad at some time. Like,
yeah,
tell me who I want to know. Like, who do you hate? Who do you want to push off a cliff? But it's just and maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's just positive all the time. But like to me, it's like I don't know. I let shit out. Like we had a guy who. So I go to the 12-step meetings for codependency, and
I would like to know more about that.
Okay, and I'll get to that, but like,
yeah, absolutely, of course.
But the thing that popped into my head though was there was this guy. There's certain boundaries, right? Like what you say in the meetings stays in the meetings, right? So if somebody's sharing some like really, I don't know, crazy story and their name, it's just, oh my God. Like, but you can't then tell somebody later, oh my God, listen to what this guy told me today. Like it's
supposed to be anonymous.
It's anonymous, right? But it's also like confidential,
Confidential. So like, I apologize. That's
yeah.
Anonymous both. And confidential. Right.
And so like, there's times where it's like, man, I wish I could tell you like the stuff that somebody had shared because it really was helpful, right. Or insightful or whatever. But I can't. That's the rules, right? So,
well, it's very ethical that you adhere to them because a lot of people go, "That's the rules," but fuck it, and then just tell somebody. Anyways.
But people, and it's I don't know. It seems like when people are sort of like putting their stuff out there. Anyway, so this guy, the guy had gone to a meeting when I was here in Ottawa, and it was great. It was amazing. It was like actually one of the best meetings I've ever been to, and so I was kind of talking about it when I went back to my home meeting. And I was like, yeah, like they did this and then they did that. And like, and then they organized this way. And, I think it's a lot better system, And so like, we were kind of talking about like incorporating some of that stuff. Right. And, so this guy comes up and I already didn't like this guy. And he's like, oh, hey, where, you said you went to that the really good meeting. Like, where was it? And I said, oh, it was out of town. It wasn't here in Baltimore. And he goes, oh, yeah, no, I caught that. But like, what city was it in? And I just looked at him and I said, none of your goddamn business, And it was one of those things where, if I wanted to say what city it was in, I would have said that. So then he approaches and asks, and I basically established a boundary. Like, I don't want to share that information. Right. And then by him then asking a second time, like almost like starting to bug me or whatever, what on a subconscious or subtextual level, what he was doing was I established a boundary. I don't want to share this information. And then he crossed that boundary and said, I want to know that thing that you're clearly not trying to tell me.
I want to let you finish, but can I just tell you, if I was in that guy's situation, I could tell you that I'm probably capable of crossing that as well. But I can tell you the boundary would not have been, I wouldn't have recognized that as a boundary. I would have thought, now it could just be me. It's probably some sort of deficiency in me, but I would have thought, you were just trying to say, oh, don't worry, it's not here. Like, there's no point looking for it because it's not here.
Right.
And then me going, oh, well, I'm curious. It sounded helpful. I would like it was, I would almost think that you were trying to be respectful. Me like, oh, it's not here. So, we'll get to it. I was like, oh no, but I'd love to go.
Right.
My brain would have been stuck on the holy shit. You got a lot of use out of that.
Right.
That sounds like a useful tool. So I never would have seen like,
you wouldn't have picked up on
I wouldn't have picked up on it. So from me, it wouldn't have been like I was trying to press the issue and be disrespectful to your, I wouldn't have seen it as a privacy thing on your part. I would have seen it as you trying like, oh, don't worry. It wasn't here.
Right. And to be fair, like, I think I already had my sort of fur up with this guy a little bit.
That is true. You did mention that.
Because it's like, I already like, I just could kind of tell this guy doesn't respect boundaries and like some of the stuff that he would say like at the meetings was just like, that's really inappropriate, like that's, and I don't know. It was just, I already knew there's something ain't right with this guy. And like, so my defenses were already up. And then when he like, it was almost like he was giving me the opportunity to sort of put the smack down on him.
Right. Right.
But yeah. So that's like, I forget where I was going with that. I didn't take my Adderall, so.
No worries. I think you were just mentioning just about setting boundaries and things like that. Like, you can be a nice person, but at the same time, you don't want to be a pushover. Right. So if you set boundaries with people, like, you basically, it's your own barometer of, okay, I give everyone leeway. If I set a boundary and you cross it, that's when I go, all right, fuck off. None of your business. I'll be a dick.
Yeah. And different people have different boundaries too. Mm-hmm. I remember I was going to get coffee with somebody and then like this other person came up and was like, oh, what are you guys doing? And my friend's like, oh, we're going to go get coffee. But I wasn't looking to invite this other person. Like I wanted to, kind of go over some stuff. And so this person's like, oh, where are you guys going for coffee? I could, blah, blah, blah. Like basically inviting themselves. And I realized like that my buddy starts like saying, we're probably, I'm not sure, but we might go to, and I realized like he's going to tell this person and then they're going to invite themselves further. And like, I don't want this person coming along because I want to kind of talk about some shit, And so I just kind of interrupted and I'm like, actually, I have some kind of personal stuff that I want to like go over with him. So, we're kind of just doing a one-on-one thing. So, like maybe we can get coffee another time. Yeah. But it was just, I had to sort of step in and sort of ask for what I needed in that moment, because otherwise it wasn't going to happen.
Well, I know that I'm capable of being that other guy in the stories. I personally, like I said, shit goes over my head at times. Not to the extent of, some people.
Right.
But just the sense where it's like, if it's like, we're thinking of going for coffee, right? And again, I don't know what social situation you guys were in at the time. Like at the club, if everyone's like, we're going to go somewhere else. Right. Generally speaking, there is that, unspoken, the more the merrier at times. Mm-hmm. So for me, I kind of almost need someone to directly, maybe not in a go fuck yourself, none of your fucking business kind of way, but just like you said, there's nothing wrong with saying to someone, hey, you know what? This is just me and him.
Right.
Another time. And I'm almost like, okay, thanks. Cause I would have just been like, we're thinking of going here. I'm like, oh, you mind if I, like, now I would have asked too. That is another different thing. I would have said, do you guys mind if I join you? Like, I'm not going to just say, all right, cool. I'll meet you there. I would say, do you guys mind is that cool if I,
and then it's on that person to like, honor themselves and be true to, and say, well, actually, I kind of want to, catch up with, like I've had that where like like I had a friend I hadn't seen in a year came out to a show. Like, comics are hanging out, and then like a couple comics showed up, and they're like, "Hey, what's up, Storck?" Blah blah blah. But it got to a point where it's like, look, I've seen these guys already. I know I'm going to see them again before I leave, but this one friend of mine, this is the one night that they're, she's going to be out, and it's like, look, I appreciate you guys coming out, but like, I got to catch up with my friend. I'd love to sit and just bullshit and everything, but like, I got to catch up.
It's important.
Like this is, because like, how comics are sometimes, like if you don't say that, they'll just kind of sit down and start talking about like, politics or hockey or whatever. And it's like, my friends, we haven't seen each other in 2 years, and I don't want to be driving home and then think like, God damn it, I didn't get to catch up with my friend because so-and-so came and was just blathering on about like hockey all night or whatever.
Right.
But it's on me to speak up and say something.
And a lot of people don't. I know that I'm guilty of it too. Is like you said, if I was talking with you and we were going to go somewhere and have somebody, someone else comes up and goes, "Hey, you guys mind if I come?" You're right. It is on you to sort of set your own boundaries and go, you know what, this is actually important. But a lot of us don't, myself included. A lot of times I would feel more bad about, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings.
Right.
So I will destroy my own plans and wants and needs to make somebody else happy.
And that's not fair to you.
No, it's not.
But it's not fair to them either.
Right.
Because what happens then is
we'll build resentment too over time.
You're planting the seeds of resentment, because then when you think about that person, you're gonna be like, yeah, that guy ruins everything and always butts in, invites him. Well, no,
but I let him.
I let him. That's your part in it, right? I had a friend back home. It was a bunch of us. We ride motorcycles together, and he's complaining about this other guy, right? Oh man, he still owes me $50 and this and that, and this is going for like 2 years, right? Finally, I'm like, have you like brought this up to him? Like, does he know that he owes you this money? Because I've had that. Like, I owe somebody $20. I just forget. I have a shitty memory. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to beat you out of $20. Like, it's not. A friendship is not worth $20.
Right.
And anybody that knows me knows Storck has a shitty memory. He probably forgot. So anyway, so I told him, I'm like, maybe you should bring it up. No, he knows. I was like, I don't think that's fair. Maybe he knows, but for you to hold a resentment yet never give him the opportunity to rectify it,
right?
Like, that's not fair,
right?
Like, to me, what I would do in that situation is I'd say, all right, it's possible that he owes me this money and just doesn't give a shit, right? That's possible, but maybe he owes me this money. Maybe he forgot, right? He just forgot about it. Maybe he thinks that he paid me back. Maybe he like gave $50 to Jay and then like just, got the memory switched, and he's like, oh yeah, I gave that 50 back to Kurt, or whatever. And, there's a whole plethora of things that it could be. Like I owed a guy $40 for a ticket for something. I just forgot. Stuff comes up, and then he sent me a message, and it was like, hey, can I get that money from you? I'm like, oh shit, like I completely forgot about that. Mm-hmm. So
life happens.
Yeah, life happens, and I'm like, the other thing is, and I told him this. I'm like, if you go to him and say, hey, you still owe me that $50, can I get that from you? Not only are you giving him the opportunity to like sort of straighten the stuff out, but you're also clarifying. Like, if you say, hey, can I get that $50? And then he's like, I don't owe you $50, blah, 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 or like, whatever, I don't care. Now for sure.
Right.
Now you've defined it. But unless
you don't need to waste any more thought on it.
Right.
Exactly, like we said before, where you stand.
Right. Like he owes you the money and he doesn't give a shit. But if he says, oh my God, I completely forgot about it. But by bringing it up, you're at least like getting to the heart of what's actually happening, instead of like guessing and assuming and, all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's exactly it. And it's one of the things I've been working on in the last, couple of years, is, again, living up to things I commit to, and at the same time trying to go outside of my comfort zone to address things with people, address problems, because a lot of people will just cut someone out of their life or something like you said, they just might have forgotten about.
Yeah.
But even so, I think with the part where you're saying about, you're driving all the way back going, shit, I never got to hang out with my friend. Like,
Right.
that's the stuff. Like, I don't want to live with regrets and being
Right.
like, oh, I tried to not make someone else feel bad.
Right.
I want to ask you more about that codependency stuff, because that's a buzzword that's been coming up with me in my life in the last couple of years that I haven't really learned much about. But before we talk about any of that, I'd like to get the listeners an opportunity to sort of get to know you as the person in the comic as well, as opposed to bare your soul. And how'd you get started? Well, it was go back to the dark ages.
Plucky young newsboy.
So I always ask this of my guests: how did you get started in stand-up comedy?
Let's see. I grew up in Baltimore. You
were one of the lucky ones that got to.
Yeah, a wonderful city of shit. There's a whole backstory. I was dating this French girl, and I was going to move to France, and I was going to, at one point, I was looking into shipping Harley Davidsons to Europe, and like that was going to be how I made money, right? I don't know, it was kind of a crazy. So anyway, everything that I would, that was just what I was going to do with my life, right? I was just going to move to France to be with this girl. And when we broke up, I was just devastated. Like I was just a shell for like months. And I was so broken that I realized that I didn't have a point. I didn't have a purpose. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was existing like sort of an appendage to her, like it didn't matter what I did or my career is just, I just need to be with this person. And, so I was like, if I never have another relationship again, like I need to have my own purpose, my own goal or whatever. And so I started thinking about that kind of stuff. Like, what do I want to do? And I was thinking like, what are the things that I like? What are the things that I enjoy? What I'm good at, whatever. And, there was this poster. It was one of those motivational success posters, with the eagle, fucking rat or whatever. And, an eagle like, soaring through the mountains with a child in its talon, aim big, a kid wearing Garanimals. Anyway, I mean, that bird's going to eat good, right? So, the phrase said, do what you love, the money will follow. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, what do I love? And the first obvious ones were motorcycles and art, right? So I used to paint and draw. I was going to go to art school after high school. I applied to Maryland Institute, College of Art, and they were going to give me money and stuff, like a
grant?
Not a grant, but like, I don't know, they're going to help.
Bursary or something?
Like, where like it costs $18,000 a year, they're going to give you 12 or 10.
So they'd subsidize some of it.
Yeah, it's like we'll cut you a break kind of thing. But I still couldn't afford it. Like we just didn't have the money, And then I did the math, and it's like, even with the like financial assistance stuff, like I'm still going to be like, $50,000-$60,000 in the hole. And for what? Like, look, I can paint a fucking base, Oh, look, I can accurately render this landscape. What do you do? Like, how's that going to, and growing up in a like sort of blue collar, economy, like, everybody worked with their hands. You're a mechanic, a welder, I don't know, transmission guy. Oh, well, he's more of a roofer, like it was just, you know what I mean? It's like, there wasn't, it was
the museum as an art scene in Baltimore was not quite.
Yeah, or at least not just in my neighborhood. It was just like, that's not what people did. It's like you work with your hands and come home tired. Like even today, like if I spent all day like tearing an engine out of my car or whatever, and I take a shower at the end of the night and I'm physically exhausted, I feel like I've accomplished something. Like I feel like that. Whatever that thing is that was put in my subconscious as a kid is satiated, and I don't feel like a lazy piece of shit or whatever, But like if I sit and write, I could do a whole bunch of work on comedy, write and edit videos and all this. But if I didn't draw blood and my hands if my fingernails aren't black, like I don't feel like I actually did work.
Okay.
It's weird.
I do understand that.
Yeah. So,
Excuse me.
So anyway, so I was thinking, well, I could race motorcycles. I could be a motorcycle mechanic. I could, maybe I could do something with art. Like I don't know what I would do, but so I'm just bouncing around with all this different stuff. And then one I was at the beach and I'm walking down the boardwalk and like something happened, like somebody dropped their pizza or a stroller caught fire or whatever. And
A stroller. Just walking, boom. Oh my God.
Spontaneous baby combustion, But I like made a joke. These two girls were white and I made like blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't even know what I said. And they start cracking up. Somebody else who overheard it starts cracking up. And I'm laughing because it was funny and I just popped in there. And I'm thinking, oh man, I gotta tell my friends about this when I get back to the condo, And then it hit me. I'm like, that's it. That's what I do. Like, yeah, I grew up riding motorcycles and going racing with my dad and everything. And I grew up drawing and painting and stuff, but coming up with funny stuff.
Yeah, just cracking jokes.
Yeah, just making people laugh, but coming up with that funny thing, like in the moment. Like that's across the board. Whatever situation I'm in, that's the thing that I do, When I was in France, I barely spoke the language, but I figured out how to be funny. I figured out how to make Uncle Didier laugh and how to get like I don't know the word for, car or whatever, but I can like do something. I can do physical.
You still bring down the walls and
facial expression. Like, I mean, like just that kind of stuff. So then it was a while before, I'm thinking, well, I could write funny greeting cards. I don't know.
Oh, you still weren't thinking stand-up comedy at that point?
Not even a clue. I was like, maybe a comic strip or, I don't know. And then one night we're watching like a stand-up, where it's like a series of different. And I'm like, wait, what about that? That seems pretty straightforward. You don't have to have a printing company or, like sell shit to newspapers. You think it and then you say it.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like that seems pretty, I'll mess around with that, maybe see what that does, you know.
Which is, of course, what everybody thinks. Oh, there's guys, they just think it and say it. That's all there is to stand-up comedy. That's the easiest job in the world.
Yeah, just talk about your sandwich. You know? But, so then like, so then I did some research and then like, how does one even do that? Like, where do you go? And then, okay, comedy clubs. And then, look at how there's 2 comedy clubs. And then I called and asked about something. And then they were like, yeah, like, we have an open mic on Thursday. It's this place called Winchester's Comedy Club in Baltimore. It was like right downtown, like right in the heart of the city. It literally in an alleyway.
Oh, wow.
And it was like across the street from the only other comedy club in Baltimore, which was a little bit bigger, but like, not, I don't know, they're both kind of shit, but that was where I started. I went to the open mic at Winchester's and, the first night I actually went, with my friend Jack and I just went just to watch, like I just want to see how this works. I don't know anything about this. Right. Like I wasn't like, I didn't like listen to Carlin and Pryor under the bed sheets. Like you hear some comics talk about like, the only 2 comics that I even knew of as a kid were Emo Phillips and Stephen Wright.
Right.
And I love them even still. I saw Emo like a couple months ago. He's magnificent. My friend Jack is like, he's like, I'm going to go up. Like, what? He's like, I don't know. So he like literally just put his name on the list and then he went up and just.
So you could do that night.
Yeah.
You could actually just sign up.
Show up, sign up. Like it's literally, let's say like it starts at 8, sign up starts at 7:30. So if you're not physically in the room, you're not on the list. And then people would show up at like 8:15. And it's like, sorry, the list is full. You should have got here sooner. Eventually, like they would do like where you would, like not call in, but like, like, all right, well, I'm definitely coming next week. But But you had to you had to either be there or you had to call. I mean, because you get to know everybody, right?
Right.
I know Andy is going. So, hey, Andy, I'm on my way. I'm just stuck in traffic. Are you there yet? Yeah, I'm here. It's my name on. Yeah, I put your name on the list. And just let him know I am coming. Like, I'm not on the, like, I'm just trying to get there.
Right.
Know? So, and it was,
How did your first set go? Did you bring friends and family? Or?
No. Oh my God, no. No, I went by myself. Jack actually was pretty funny, and he didn't plan anything. He just went up,
Started talking
just
shit.
talked about this. I think he talked to the Super Friends, and he's like, it's not really Super Friends. He's like, I mean, if you think about everybody's they're Batman and Wonder, they're always getting caught in like traps, and then Superman has to always come bail them out. They should have called it Super Friend.
Not bad for off the top of his head.
Right? Like Superman, we're trapped in this ice cave. Like, can you help us? Fine. I wish you guys wouldn't all just do,
Yeah, can you guys stop just going out and getting caught?
Yeah. And something about like the Green Lantern walking by a burning orphanage, but he doesn't have his ring on. He's like, I don't have my ring. I'm sorry. I don't.
Can't do anything to help.
Yeah. Then I went back the next week. I went up with what I thought was going to be like 5 minutes of material. I think I did it in 1 minute and 40 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And I bombed hard.
Really?
Oh, fuck.
And still tried again.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have their great first set.
That's the worst thing that can...
And then shit the bed the next one. But they have that first time to
That's the
remember.
worst. That is the absolute worst thing that can happen.
You think so?
Oh my God, absolutely. To have like your first set go well, that's the worst thing that you can possibly, because like it's like heroin, right? First time like kills it. Audience is going nuts. And then the comic's thinking, well, I got this. I'm a natural. And so then they go up the second time and maybe they don't have all their friends there or whatever. And then they don't do as well. So it's like they're starting with this like very artificial first impression of where their talent or ability is. And every comic that has had that experience, I see like their work ethic is just terrible because they think like, well, I'm just a natural. Like I just go up and do my thing. Like the first time was just like, shooting fish in a barrel. Whereas the comics who go up and just eat a dick the first time and like bomb and go down in flames, they're like, because like for me, I was like that was so awful. Like, I can't believe that I'm going to have to just keep doing this. Like, it never occurred to me that I'm not going to do this.
Right.
Like, that was like, I don't know if I want to do it. Like, it was already decided. Like, this is what I'm doing. And as horrible and painful as that was, I'm going to come next Thursday and I'm going to put my name on the list and I'm going to have to go through that again. Like it was just.
Well, that's a strong work ethic. I've seen the flip side of, I've heard arguments for both sides. Mm-hmm. Brian Regan tells the story of the first time he ever did it and he forgot his entire act that he'd written down. Uh-huh. And they started laughing because he's like, wow, you guys aren't going to believe this. I just forgot my entire act. And he's like, and then they laughed. And he's like, no, I'm serious. And they laughed. And he goes, you guys don't understand. This is a nightmare. And they laughed again. He goes, wow, you must think I'm a big fucking idiot. And they were laughing. And he goes, and I got off stage and he goes, even the pros were like, oh my God, that was amazing. Was that planned? He goes, was that planned? Like he couldn't believe. And he goes, and then the next 5 times he got on stage, he had the act that he had written and everything and bombed and died a terrible death. But in his head, he goes, all I remembered that kept me going was, I know I got him laughing.
Right.
Like, I know. He's like, I know I've done it before, so I can get back to that.
Right.
Because I can't imagine how many great comics maybe tried it their first time, died a horrible death, and went, well, I don't need this in my life, and then just stopped, never went back and tried again.
Right.
So I do see what you're saying. Like there are people definitely. I myself had a good first time, and it actually, I can't say like I had a terrible second time. I actually did decent, but I was a comedy fan. I did take it serious. I did always want to improve. Both sides make sense. I can see the benefits of doing well and then not, and then I can see the benefit of doing not well and then eventually building up there.
Right. I've seen it. I've seen it. This guy, that guy, her, him, her, and her and him. They all had like just they started out shitty, and then they just gradually, incrementally got better and better and better and better. Mm-hmm. Whereas him, her, and him, they all had like those like amazing. Like they just, they brought a lot of people, or
Right,
they were
the
just
safety blanket.
Something clicked or fell into place, and they had that great first set. And then a year later, they have nothing. Like they don't write. Like it's like they're waiting for that magic to just happen.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's like that, like when somebody's superstitious, they wear the lucky socks and they rub the doorknob twice before, it's like they don't know what to attribute their success to, because it feels like it was like this just natural thing. Mm-hmm. And I've just seen that as a pattern, more often.
It makes sense. There's probably, the funny thing too is that there's probably the people out there like yourself who maybe just did bad the first time, but then they just never came back. Like, I'm sure you've seen lots of people do it once and never see it again. And it's like, who knows? That person could have been the next whatever, but they just, that first time, and it was out of the gates. And then there's the ones who do bomb their first time and keep coming back and never get any better. Still just think they're naturally funny and that the crowds don't get them.
Yep.
I think it's probably, there's more of the character. So it's like, guys like you or me, like I guarantee even if you did well your first time and then ate it the next few times, you'd still keep trying to make it better. I think it's a character thing.
Well, and I don't know that I would have, my approach would have been the same.
Right.
Like for me, it was like, I started out with the belief, well, this is going to be a very slow, tough slog. So I recorded my sets. I listened to them. I went over them. How did I say this? How did I say that? Like I just, I started, it's like, like, what do you call it? D-Day. Like when you start out, like the gate of the boat opens and like everybody's just getting like riddled with bullets. It's like, you're okay. There's no slow, cold open. Like we're just,
Yeah.
So it's like when they finally make it over that cliff, whew, all right. Like everything else is like, we're going to have to do some firefights, but Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And not all of us are going to be here at the end.
Right. But like that, like we got through that horrible, and it's like bombing, like people who are afraid of bombing, people are like, well, I don't want to bomb. Like, well, you're going to bomb. Yeah. It's not negotiable. It's going to happen.
Just try to learn from it.
Yeah.
Take something and make a positive out of it. Don't just
deal with it. Like I did a show in Florida where I was in between gigs and I went to open mic and the guy's like, do you want to go up? And I'm like, no, I'm just hanging out. And the comic who I was crashing with was like, he's like, no, it's his first time and he's really nervous. And the host was like, oh man, don't be nervous. Like it's a really positive environment. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Right. He's like, no, it'd be funny. Like, first time, then just go up and do your thing. I'm like, yeah, but so what?
Yeah. What's to be gained from that?
Who gives a shit? Like, ooh, like
it's an ego stroke. That's
right,
what it is.
Yeah. Like, fuck that. Like, go up and flex in the mirror. Why don't you?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to go up and bomb. And he's like, what? I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm going to go up and bomb. Like nobody gets anything out of me. Like, oh, I'm just going to do the jokes I did last week at the club. Like, I'm going to see how hard I can eat shit on purpose. And turns out pretty hard.
Nice.
I did everything. I picked the most congested path to the stage.
To take as long as possible to get there?
Uh-huh.
That's fucking hilarious.
I knocked over stuff on my way through the tables and shit. Literally, like, it's an open mic. It's not packed, right? And I'm literally taking the one path that puts me between all the customers, and awkwardly shook the MC's hand, like on the wrong side of the mic stand, knocked the stool over, everything. I fumbled with the microphone. I put the microphone in the wrong place. I just moved the microphone forward and like raised it up. So it was like even more blocking my face.
Right.
And I was thinking the other day I was on the bus. Well, it was actually before I got on the bus, but I wasn't on the bus yet. But I was before I got on the bus. I was at the bus stop. Actually, is where I was when I was thinking this.
Like so just taking as long as you could to get to anything.
Like that doesn't matter. The audience doesn't give a fuck whether I was on the bus or at a picnic table or. It doesn't matter. And just all the like classic sort of you don't know what you're doing comedy mistakes, when I went to hit the punch, like the one thing that like was going to sound like a punchline, like the big joke that I probably was like anchoring everything to, I put my finger on the button for the XLR cable.
Oh, and ditch the thing.
And so I blah, blah, blah. And then as I pulled the microphone out, the cable pulled off.
Out of the button, yeah.
So like whatever that punchline word was.
You killed it with.
I killed it, yeah. It was great. It was so great. There's so many other things. And I walked 2 people.
Nice.
And
that's half the crowd at an open mic.
Yeah. And it was, but it was interesting because I realized like every fiber in my being wanted me to like reach into my back pocket and pull out a bit.
Right.
Because I'm bombing. I'm getting silence. It's awkward. It's painful. And I'm like, this is the thing that we all run from, right? This is the silence, like the deafening giant tidal wave of nothing that we're afraid of. And
you're running towards
I'm running towards it. Like, this doesn't make sense. And like every reflex, every instinct I had, because I can fix this. I can fix this, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you're in a bank robbery and you're on the floor with your head down and you know that you have a nuke in your pocket. You're like, I can fix this, but I'm not allowed to, you know? And it was hard. It was hard to not do that. And then I realized after the fact that by embracing the silence and like actually forcing myself to surrender to the bombing, I wasn't afraid of it anymore. Like the next week when I was doing shows, I would do a bit or I would try out something new. And if it didn't hit, I was okay. Like I didn't feel the need to speed up.
Right.
I didn't feel the need to like rush to the punchline or I have to win them back kind of thing. Like I was comfortable, and it gave me a whole nother level of confidence to be able to just be me, just go up and do my thing and like be okay with that. Like I wasn't running from the silence.
Right. It didn't fuck with you or shake you when you're on stage.
Yeah.
Now, talking about the whole DD thing and running for the cliff and finally getting there, and you're like, okay, this is better. How long before you went from being an open micer to a paid comic? You're doing openers. You're doing weeks at the club. Even just a ballpark. Was it a year, 5 years?
Like 2 or 3.
2 or 3 years.
Hard to say.
What I ask people sometimes too is, was there any like milestones that you hit that you realized like I'm on to something here? Like this actually is viable.
Well, so I basically did open mics in Baltimore, and then I would go to open mics down in Washington D.C. because it's only like an hour away, and then I met more comics, and there were comics who would do D.C. and not Baltimore, and Baltimore and not do D.C. And what I found was I got to know comedians in both cities because I was going to all the mics and stuff. I was exposing myself to much more stand up. And I was seeing more just different styles of comedians, different rooms, and I was do any room. I don't give a shit, right? We could do poetry rooms. There's like all what do you call it? Like Def Jam or all black clubs where you just don't have white comics. Mm-hmm. But we'd go. It's like, can we get a spot? And they're like, yeah, we don't give a shit. Like, comics are comics. Like, we don't give a fuck.
Right.
Comedians have more in common with each other than their allegiance to one particular type of audience. You know what I mean? Of course. And so the comics like, yeah, we don't give a shit. I'm like, all right. So we go up, and usually the crowds were like, oh, like this is new. Like we're just like, oh, like it'd be like if
a novelty.
Yeah, like a prop comic were to go to like a like a hipster artsy place. It's like they might not like it, but but it's like that you're not going to see that. And then DC is more of like a white collar economy, right? You've got government, tech, biotech. Like Baltimore's more blue collar economy, rougher. Like I said, dirt under the fingernails. Like so if you can play both rooms, it'd be like if you had Hamilton, Ontario, right next to Ottawa,
right?
You would be wow. We're my jokes work with like all the smart government workers, but they also work with the the steel mill factory, like rough and tumble kind of audiences,
right?
So it's like if you can hit both, like you're sort of accessibility is a lot greater.
Yeah.
Whereas if a comic only develops in like San Francisco and they never like branch out, they can kill with a very specific demographic, but like it can be limiting as well.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like, oh, all the kale salad jokes work here. It's like,
Right.
That's not.
Yeah. And to me, it's like if I can make my material more accessible, you know, I want to do what I want to do, you know, but can I word this in a way that more people get it? You know, like not just Star Wars fans or not just people that, you know, are introspective and work on their whatever psychology stuff they got going on, you know.
Absolutely. Were there any, like I say, were there any big milestones that you can remember in your career? Anything that stood out as like a turning point?
There was the first time that I got to, so in the States, the MC is the newest comic. And then the feature or middle is like sort of like a journeyman, right? The person who's been doing it for a while, right? A couple years, whatever. And then the headliner is sort of like the main act or whatever, right? So in the States, your first spot as an MC, that's like sort of like, oh my God, I'm actually getting paid with a real audience. Like that was like a big, like, holy shit, like this is happening, you know, kind of thing. Even though it was a shit club and all that kind of stuff, it was a big deal for me. Like it meant a lot. Yeah, I think, and then like everything was incremental, you know, like after that, it's like, you know, then I get a spot hosting at like a better club or a bigger club and then branching out to like Virginia and Pennsylvania and whatever. Starting to get gigs, like actually getting like, you know, where like they send you an email with the itinerary and like staying in a hotel. Like that was another sort of milestone. It's like, it's one thing to like drive down to the local club, do a weekend show and like, you know, yes, I got paid, but I'm also sleeping in my bed tonight. When they put me in a hotel, whoa, fancy. You know what I mean? It's like that, like I'm a real comedian. That was like a milestone right there. Yeah. And then like, you know, have to get my passport, like doing gigs in like the Bahamas, up here in Canada, like all that kind of stuff, you know. And then there's been others like, but I would say that, yeah, I'm sure there's probably bigger ones.
It's a hard question. It's not one that anyone's ever prepared for. I ask it and just sometimes there's a few things that stand out. That there's something there cool. Sometimes it's not, you know, there's been a lot of little successes.
And actually I just realized as you were, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, of course.
But like I realized that when I hear the word milestone, like I don't even think about like credits, you know, like, oh, well, you know, I did this show and then I won that thing. And there's contests that I've won that meant nothing or, you know, it just, to me, it's like when I think of milestone, like it's like more like personal, you know.
Absolutely.
Like,
and that's what I'm looking for too, is generally speaking, because like that's the stuff that drives us. It's great to do festivals and TV spots and things like that. But I mean, for me, like milestones is like you said, it's a personal thing. This happened and that made me realize this. And that's when I felt that. So yeah, we were on the same page for sure.
That bombing on purpose.
Well, like
that was a huge milestone.
Absolutely.
That was a big breaker right there. I'm doing this on purpose. Another one was when I turn off the targeting computer, you know, like when when Luke's flying through the trench of the Death Star and it goes like up and out of the way.
Let go, Luke.
Yeah. like
Trust your feelings.
Knowing that I had like when I was like, because in this, like I was saying, in the States, you do 30 minutes, right? And having that 30 minutes solid, like I can go up, I can do 30 minutes and it's bulletproof. Like I can be sick, I can be drunk, I can have a headache, I could be blind, and I can still do this 30 minutes and I know it back and front and it's gonna pop like because the jokes are written to work, you know, like I don't have to like do a whole lot of salesmanship in it, whatever. Having that allowed me to then play because it's like, I was talking about this the other week. It's like having a gun in your pocket. Like, you know, like, hey, I can go off trail here. I can just riff about somebody's shirt or a hamburger or whatever. And if it's funny, great. But if it's not funny, it's fine because I can always just shift right back to my tried and true set. So knowing that, like, I'm not afraid of losing them because I know I can get them back.
Right.
That was a big breaking sort of point because it's like I can experiment.
Well, and that's the confidence just to be able to go, hey, I'm going to do what I'm going to have fun. And if having fun brings me down this road, well, I have a set of breadcrumbs to bring me back.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know? So I love, of course, you as an American go with a gun reference first. I got a gun in my pocket. So
Right. Well, you know,
I can force them back onto my side.
Right. You know, it's like having a loaded 45, you know,
You just put the gun to their heads and then everyone's having fun.
Right. It's like worst case scenario. I pull the 45 out and say, look,
wave it around in a room where everyone's sitting,
Right.
not unlike a theater.
theater, baptism, Sizzler, all you can eat buffet. But yeah, but it's like it's that confidence of knowing that like you're going to be able to pull it out, and then it's like, you know, because like if you're scared, like if I'm scared, like, you know, when it's like I don't want to lose him because God, for like I don't know if I'll be able to get him back, but you know, having that, like, I don't know, and like now I've kind of been working towards like getting more personal, talking about like, you know, more deeper personal stuff. You know?
Well, and that was my next question is, did you have any milestones, maybe any low points, any parts that made you, you know, rethink things, or, you know, like Jesus, the moment of doubt on the cross?
Jesus. Yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, those are too many to count.
Right.
You know? Yeah. Every week. What am I doing? What's the point?
Well, like I said, when you first talked about the girl from France, you know, that was a low point that pushed you towards comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
No other, not that I'm wishing them on you, of course.
Oh, no,
but anything.
they
I mean,
happen all the
obviously,
time.
doubt all the time.
I expect them to the point that when they don't happen, I get nervous.
You're like, oh fuck, this is gonna be big.
Right. Things are going too well. Like something bad's coming around the corner, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tons of bad stuff. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, yeah, again, the little doubts and stuff like that. But it's not.
Like,
it's not like you lost a car and had to cancel 6 months worth of gigs, and then it was a slow climb back. Nothing like that.
I'm sure that kind of. Yeah. The thing is, it's like that stuff. I think I just, because of my life, I learned to accept that stuff. It's just like, well, of course, my car just blew up. You know, of course, I just got like when I had the last motorcycle wreck, I snapped my leg, right, and I'm on crutches. I'm all fucked up, right. And I had a gig in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, like 2 weeks after the crash. And like my leg is like shattered, right? And the booker calls me. He's like, you know, hey, like, so thing, blah, blah, blah. You know, we're going to, find somebody. I was like, no. I'm doing the gig. I need the money. And he's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, like, just, as long as, like, I just need a chair to sit in. Like I can't stand for 45 minutes, because I got a broken leg. I have to keep it elevated. So as long as I can keep my leg elevated, I can do the show. And he's like, you're serious. You're not like, this isn't I'm like, yes, I'm serious. You don't need to get, if you want to get another comic, it's up to you. But like, so that's what I did. I just drove. It was only like, this is a 2-hour drive. And I put my leg up on the dashboard. And I drove to Harrisburg, and I have pictures where I'm like on stage.
You drove?
I drove.
So you had one foot down working the gas and the brake, and then the other fucking leg up on
my
the
left leg was
whilst
up.
driving.
Yeah,
and you can still see your mirror on the left side.
I don't remember, but
you're like, because the Vicodin and the I'm just
but yeah, like because I had cruise control, so I could control that with the thumb with the steering wheel.
Right.
And I just put my leg up, in the dashboard, up on the windshield, and I just drove with that. But and then I did the show. I had I literally put my broken leg up on a stool. And I sat in a chair and I just did the show that way.
How'd it go?
It was good. Actually, it was really good. And I found, once again, by doing things differently, there were certain bits that I'm used to standing and being physical and like, walking around or I don't know, whatever. Like do your whole set sitting down once. Do your whole show sitting on the stool. And it's like there'll be at least a couple bits where you're like, oh, this is different. Mm-hmm. I have to deliver this a little bit differently. And there were bits that actually got better because I did it that way. It's just, I don't know. I don't like, I had to pace
just
it.
Shake it up and try something different.
Yeah. I've done shows with fevers and the flu and.
Yeah, it's different once you're on stage. Pete Johansson calls it Dr. Comedy.
Yeah.
You go up on stage and just whatever was wrong with you seems to go away while you're there. And then as soon as you get on stage, it all just comes right back. It was paused and we're back.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was here last winter, I had like the flu like horribly. And like it was like Thursday and Friday. Like, you guys have been awesome. Thank you so much. And, enjoy the rest of your night. And I didn't make it halfway back to the green room. I'm like, oh my God, I got to go to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
it comes and goes real quick.
Yeah. But yeah, like all the usual stuff, like, am I ever going to, make enough money? Is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? Like, oh, I wish I could do this thing or that thing. And like, but everybody goes through that.
Right. Well, like you said, do what you love and the money will come. And that
poster,
so far it has.
Well, not really.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that poster lied.
Kill your dreams, everyone.
Yeah. But I mean, and it's and I've thought about like, branching out too. Like it's like if you spend 10, 15 years acquiring a specific tool belt and then you say, maybe this isn't working, or I need to make more money, or I can't afford a mortgage or whatever, I'll just be an accountant. Okay, but like you spent 15 years learning how to be a blank. Why not use those tools? Like, I don't know. That's why a lot of comics will go into like radio or acting or, hosting things or, whatever, being a professional MC for game shows or TV stuff or I don't know, whatever, because it's like, there's a lot of stuff we're good at, public speaking, acting.
Well, a lot of people are afraid of public speaking. So
yeah, they're terrified.
You put them in another public speaking. It doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother you.
Noreen at Jay's Roast. I mean, like, we're used to it. She even said that. She's like, you guys are used to this. Like, this is what you do. Like, she's like, I'm terrified. And it's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Like, and that was the same thing for me. Like, I was absolutely terrified the first time I went on stage. And that didn't go away. It was there for years. Like every time I'm like having like these like mini panic attacks, but that's how determined I was. I'm like, I'm going through this massive amount of anxiety. I don't have any medication to mitigate it. And I'm still going up there and doing it. Like I'm literally terrified and I'm choosing to do the thing that I'm terrified of.
Yeah. Well, it's even like sometimes the opposite is even scarier. It's just the whole idea of like, hey, but what if I don't do this? Like,
right. But it's usually the doing it that's most people are. But that gets into the like codependency and the self work that I've been doing on my.
And that's what I wanted to ask about. That. So like, do you mind if I ask? You don't have to answer. You can get as personal.
Dude, I'm open as fuck. I don't give a shit.
I know, and I've never really had anyone say no, we're not going to do it. But just to know that it's not about being prying. It's about
just ask the question.
What was going on with you? Like what is codependency and what sort of moved you forward into getting help with it?
Codependency is often I was going to read the definition in the book, but so codependency essentially like there's a better definition out there, I'm sure. Look it up, Wikipedia, coda.org, CODA. But basically codependency is like I'll give you an example. You see like the alcoholic husband, right?
Okay.
Piece of shit, bad temper, drinks all the time, maybe drug problem, whatever, right? We all know that like dirtbag husband. And then you got the wife who's like so nice and super sweet. And she's like, oh, he's just, he's got a good heart and he's trying and he's not that bad when he's not drinking, like always making the excuses. She's wiping
the enabler.
Right. Exactly. Wiping his ass, clean up his messes. Right. And like people say like, I don't get it. Like he's such a piece of shit and she's so nice. And that dynamic. Well, that is the sort of stereotypical textbook codependent relationship. Right. So you have the one person is an alcoholic, an addict, abusive, whatever. There's like something negative. They got a personality disorder. They're bipolar. They're narcissistic. They're histrionic or borderline, whatever. Right. And then on the other side, you have the codependent, right? The codependent is the person who gets, low self-esteem. And then what they do is you build the self-esteem by fixing, saving, rescuing, caretaking this other person, right? So the alcoholic is drawn to the codependent because they're like, sort of this like nurturing, helpful, I accept you and I'm here for you and all that. And they basically put up with their bullshit. And the codependent is drawn to the person that's damaged that needs rescuing. So it's this sort of mutually symbiotic relationship. Like, I'm a mess. Well, I love to rescue people. And then they find each other. And then it's this like sort of, and there's cycles to it and all that kind of stuff. But codependency does not require two people. Person A is codependent. And it doesn't matter whether their codependency is activated or happening in a romantic relationship, a work relationship, a friendship, family, situation. You see it where, the child is codependent with the parent. The parent is, whatever, abusive or screwed up or whatever. And the child is like trying to save, rescue, caretake, fix the parent,
Right.
or whoever, So, like I said, there's a much better definition out there.
And I'm sure several far worse definitions as well.
Probably. But people just like people use the term narcissist very loosely and they don't really understand what the actual personality disorder is. The same thing is true with codependency. Like people are, they'll use that term interchangeable. Oh, that, codependent on this or with that or whatever, but they don't actually know what it means. For me, it's like I was codependent in relationships. I would get into relationships with, damaged goods, right? The girl's, she's got a good heart, but like she's got a drinking problem or she's got like abandonment issues or she's got intimacy or whatever, and I would hang in there. I would stick it out, right? I would just sort of fight the good fight, like, I would date for potential. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so as a result, I would date a lot of people that were wrong for me. And so as a result, like I dated a lot of fixer-uppers, right? Scratch and dent. If there's 30 criteria that would make somebody a good fit for you, you'd find somebody that had like 8 of those 30 and then hope, steer, nudge, encourage the person to like be a little funnier or less angry about other, ethnicities or, like it's like, oh, well, she's a little racist or, oh, she like drinks too much, but I'm sure that'll settle down. And that's sort of classic codependent, wishful thinking of like, oh, this person's going to be less angry or less that or more this or more that, whatever. And instead of like, this is who the person is,
Yeah, and you can't change other people.
Right. And but codependence, we do that. That's,
So how did you get to a point where you're like, I need help with this or something?
So
did something happen?
So I was in a relationship and I was a comic and she and I dated for a while and things, things were just kind of it wasn't a great fit. Like it was a decent fit, but it wasn't a great fit. And I had already started to kind of think that maybe we should split up. Right. But then she wound up breaking up with me. Right. And I was a mess. I mean, I was devastated. And I like talking to some of my close friends and they're like, why are you so like upset? Like this is like your world's crashing down. I was like, I know, that's what it feels like. Like it feels like, like she actually said to me when we were breaking up, she's like, you're acting like your mom died. And I was like, I know, that's what it feels like. And that's when something clicked. I'm like, something ain't right here. Like that. I literally feel like my mom just died and like my world is just getting ripped apart. And it's just a girlfriend that we dated for a while and it didn't, this doesn't fit. The reaction that I'm having is so great. And like overwhelmed, like, I mean, it was a mess and, it shouldn't be like, this is disproportionate. I got some bad wiring. I need to look at this. I got bad wiring in my head. So I had no idea where to start. So I just would I would go to the bookstore and I just go in the self-help section and just grab random books and read the thing on the back and, like watching like Oprah and stuff like that. Like really, but like every once in a while there'd be something there like, oh, today's guest is dealing with whatever, and like I'd be like, that sounds familiar, and like little tidbits here and there, like, and eventually I think I went to, there was like a meeting. It was like Love Addict Anonymous or something. And so like, I think some of the stuff I had read seemed like it fit that a bit, you know? So I went to a couple meetings, and it's like, I could identify with some of the stuff that people were talking about. Right. Cause you know, people will share their personal experience. Right. And then, you know, you're like, oh, I know what that's like, you know, and then there's that sort of, when you identify with stuff, it's like, yeah, that's what I do. Like that's the same, you know? And so then it's like you're kind of getting to it, you know?
And it's also easier to, like, when you hear about what someone else is going through, it's easier to see it for what it is when it's not you, when you're not so close to the puzzle.
Exactly.
So being able to sit in a room and go, fuck, that's not me, but I can see exactly what's happening there. But then I can. And
sometimes people will share stuff that's like, that is exactly like, it's like you're telling my story, you know? But anyway, so it was good, but like after like maybe, I don't know, 2 months of going to those meetings, I was talking to somebody and they're like, you know, maybe like you should try checking out this other meeting also. And it was for codependency. And so I went to that meeting and just, you know, hang out and listen. You don't have to talk, you know? And it was like, oh yeah. Oh, wow. Like it was like so much of what people were talking about was just resonating. It's like, that is me. That is totally me. I do that, you know, like, oh, I'm in this bad relationship and I really know I should get out, but it's just, I feel bad. And, you know, like, cause they're really trying. And it's like, oh my God, this is the same shit that I say, you know?
Right.
And
sometimes the actuality is there's no effort from that other person at all.
Oh yeah, you know,
and it's like you're holding on to a bad stock. You just, it just keeps going down, and you go, but any day now, it's just going to turn around and make it all worthwhile,
right? And so that was when I was like really, and then I started going to therapy, and you know, digging at like the deeper stuff, and this is going back quite a few years. And I had made a lot of improvements, right? And I was, you know, I've been going to CODA meetings for maybe about a year or so, going to therapy, blah, 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 working on my shit and getting at the heart. Like, why do I get so angry when somebody's acting like a bully? Well, because I was bullied as a kid, like a lot, you know? That's why I have issues with authority, you know? Like as a kid, the authority was horseshit. Like my parents, teachers, principals, adults never helped me.
Right.
Adults never saved me from anything. They never intervened. They never like, hey, stop like fighting, or hey, don't do that, or like nobody in a position of authority ever had my back. And so as a result, I don't trust authority. You know, cops, government agencies, whatever, like the only time they would intervene was to punish or ground or send me to detention. So,
so their office, their title held no respect.
Yeah, like if you're in a position of authority, you're never going to help me. You're only going to make my life worse. Right. So I just don't involve you. You know, I do everything on my own. I don't trust them.
Well, that's the thing. A relationship's built on trust. So authority, you want me to give a fuck about you. I don't trust you. It's never going to happen.
And that's part of why I became a little bit of a control freak, you know? Like I want to drive. I want to learn Photoshop and do it myself. I want to do stand up. You know, I want to be as autonomous as I can. I don't take my car to a mechanic. I fix it myself because I know that I'll do it right. I don't trust them to do it right. You know, I don't want to have to rely on other people, you know? So I learned a lot about myself, and I got to that dangerous point. It's like when a comic gets like a good 30 to 40 minutes, I had improved my life and gotten healthier just to the point where things had gotten a lot better. And then I just kind of sort of stopped working on myself because I'm like, I'm good. Right.
I got
this. Right. And complacency set in. And then couple years go by, relationship here, relationship there. And the next thing I know, I'm in this relationship and there's no intimacy. There's no vulnerability. There was no fun. It was just like, you look at it like a checklist. It's like, there really wasn't a lot of reasons for me to be in that relationship. You know, we didn't have the same sense of humor. We didn't like to do, it was just, and it was, once again, it was potential.
You know, I was hoping that this person, she would come around and blah, blah, blah. And ultimately, I was starting to get more and more miserable, more and more unhappy. I started going back to therapy. And then I started going back to the CODA meetings. And one night I'm sitting at the meeting and a person on my right is sharing this like really deep personal stuff, emotional, like, wow, you know. And I was impressed, you know, with the honesty, the candor, the vulnerability. Like it takes a lot of balls
absolutely.
to like say like, I'm scared. Like I'm in this situation and I'm afraid that this person's going to leave me and I'm doing this, that, and the other thing, which is embarrassing. Everybody loves to talk about how great they are. Everybody loves to talk about how successful they are. It's scary to admit I don't like that person, you know, like that's one of the reasons that like the worse the reaction people might have to what you say. Like if somebody said, I'm a racist, right? Or I like to like punch children in the face. Nobody's ever going to say I'm a racist, right? Except for maybe the president, right? But like, but do you know what I mean? Because they know, like that they're going to get condemned for it, right? Nobody says I like bad fucking kids.
Yeah, people are afraid of the repercussions.
So that's the scary shit, right? It's scary to admit things that make us look bad, right? Like if I say, you know, I shit my pants and I have a little dick and I don't think I'm actually funny or whatever. Like people will be like, oh my God. Like I could see where people will say like, ooh, that's gross. Or, well, we want a comedian who's confident or, I don't know, whatever, right? Like people are afraid to admit like to those vulnerabilities, right?
But people connect with the honesty.
And that's the thing. Like there's Brene Brown. Has like a great TED Talk where she talks about the power of vulnerability. When people erect these walls, right, and they don't want to admit their flaws and their faults, their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities, they're doing it in an effort to try to protect themselves, right? And what happens is they're not. It doesn't work, like because then, like let's say when the person leaves or a relationship falls apart, whatever, they still get hurt.
Right.
Like it doesn't actually protect us from the pain. The only thing that it does is it puts a wall up and keeps out the pleasure. We think that we're protecting ourselves from the bad, and we're not. The double whammy is that the only thing that we're protecting ourselves from is the good.
Right.
Like
Because you can't grow if you're not recognizing.
Well, you can't let in the love. Let's say you're in a relationship and this person loves you, right? But you know, there's this wall because you don't want to get hurt, right? Like my one ex, right? I realized that like the thing is that there was abandonment issues. You know, her MO was, you can't ever leave me if I never actually let you in.
Right. Prevention of pain.
Right. But it was like that. If I don't open up, if I don't actually let you get to know me, if I don't actually become vulnerable, then I never actually let you into my house. You know, you know, you're standing out on the front lawn, but you're not actually in my house. The thing is that like, it's still going to hurt when I leave. When I walk off the lawn, it's still going to hurt. And you didn't even get to know me. You didn't let, and that was a big part of why our relationship didn't work, was that she wasn't willing to let me in. She was too scared to be actually vulnerable. And that was what prevented that actual intimacy. And the relationship that I'm in now, like, is the complete polar opposite. Like right out of the gate, there was just total 100% vulnerability, honesty. Like we already knew a ton about each other, but like the stuff that we shared with each other was like, hey, here's something really embarrassing that you'll probably want to leave me for. One time, blah, 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 blah. You know, and then she'd be like, oh my God, this one time, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, this is like really embarrassing. It's like farting in front of each other. Like I fart in front of her and she farts in front of me. And that's important because the thing is,
sorry.
And no, it is.
It is important. It was just the cadence in which you're like, and that's important.
And it's not this, like, it's not
the
this
key
fucking,
to a healthy relationship.
It's not this fucking shticky, like, you know, oh, you got to fart in front of your guy.
No, of course.
No, because the thing is that a fart, you know, it breaks the convention of like the sexy woman in the negligee waiting on the bed with the candles, and the fart is this is reality.
Yeah, it breaks the expectations and goes, can you handle the surprises?
I'm human.
Yeah.
Like I fart and I shit and I am going to throw up and get the flu sometimes. And like the woman who doesn't fart in front of her guy, or the guy who doesn't fart in front of his woman, like they're upholding some sort of fake storybook facade, right? This Ozzie and Harriet. Oh, well, I think we should have the Hendersons over for dinner. Well, as long as we have the pot roast, is going to turn out right. Don't want to have another situation. You know, like you see like those the 50s and 60s, like where like they're having company over for dinner and everything has to go well. And like, we don't want to have, oh no, the dog's loose. We can't have the.
Yeah. Well, that's just pandering and posturing.
Yeah. It's bullshit. It's all bullshit. Like what you've got to get the Henderson account to think that you have this like perfect, like nuclear home with the, you know, whatever. It's the same thing. Not farting in front of your partner is keeping up some sort of artificial bullshit facade. It's a lie. It's bullshit, and it's superficial, and I don't want that. It's a waste of time. It's like when I'm sure you get this where you talk to certain comics or like radio personalities, and you're like, you know, how you been? Like, what's going on? They're like, hey, I'm great. Like things are going well. You know, we're just rocking it through the work week. We got the big Ravens bash coming up on Thursday, and it's like, yeah, I don't want to talk to that radio persona.
Yeah,
like,
I don't want the disingenuous response.
Right.
I was actually.
I want to. I know there's a human soul in there somewhere. Like if I can talk to the soul, the real person, great. If not, I'm gonna go get a Pepsi.
Yeah.
Like I have no interest in interacting with the fucking Max Headroom, you know, persona bullshit. Right. Like be real, or you know.
Well, that's something too that has come up at times where people tend to, especially with relationships and intimacy, is that they do a lot of comparing. Like, well, these people look so happy, and these friends over here, look at them, they just got back. It's like, yeah, but you're seeing the demo reel of everybody's relationship. You know what I mean? No one goes on Facebook and posts that they shit their pants and their partner had to clean them up. Like, you know, no one shows the big fight that they had over whatever they picked on Netflix. Like, of course, if you compare yourself to everybody else's demo reel,
right? And that brings it full circle to comedy. You know, like I can't recommend the Brene Brown TED Talk enough. Like it's amazing. It's the power of vulnerability, right?
Okay.
When we get vulnerable, and that was what I have with Marla, you know, is that there's that vulnerability. Like we know each other, like actually, like the real dirt, you know, and as a result, I don't have to wonder like what's going on or what's the truth, you know, like she doesn't have to wonder, like we know each other, like for real. And so there's none of this and so because once you have that vulnerability, and like that's what I realized at that meeting, like before I broke up with my ex, was this vulnerability that this person, this stranger that I barely know, I feel like I know this person. There's an intimacy there, an actual intimacy. And I realize I feel more connected to this relative stranger at this CODA meeting than I do to the person that I've been dating for 2.5 years. How is that possible? It's a compliment to the person at the meeting that they're like sharing and being open and vulnerable and like admitting all this like embarrassing stuff. But it's also somewhat of an indictment against the person I'm trying to have a relationship with, because 2.5 years, you couldn't bring yourself to just open up a little bit, you know, like this person opened up more in, you know, 5 minutes than in 2.5 years. Like I don't want to say it's right or wrong, but I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't feel connected and intimate with somebody if they can't be open and vulnerable.
But that's a big thing, right? Especially if you're codependent, is to be able to make that recognition and go, shit, all this time I've been trying to save the person or whatever, and now I can recognize the fact that I can't do that. If you can't open up,
and the vulnerability and the scary stuff, that's what actually leads to intimacy, right? Not the, look at my trophies and let me brag about this and brag about that. Like if I'm trying to look good, like I might impress you, but there's no intimacy. If you see me fail and fall and all that, and it's the same thing with stand up and with comedy in general, like the clown must fail, right? Like the clown, the Buster Keaton or the whatever doesn't like win, right? Things don't just go smoothly. It's when we like talk about like our flaws, our faults, all the screw ups and a screwed up way that we see the world and all that that's where the comedy comes from.
Yeah, your character is how you overcome adversity, as opposed to, it's not hey, you are how all the green lights that you've had and just walked your way through doors. Like it's having to climb over walls and how you faced the negative, how you grew from it.
Right. And that's why I think like when a comic goes up real cocky, or like, like you see, like if a comic like looks good, right? Like, oh, this comedian is really attractive and looks like they have their shit together. It's hard for an audience to kind of like wrap their head around that, like they're more hesitant and reluctant. Like, really, like we're supposed to expect that, like, your life is this train wreck. Like, you're better looking than us. You're, taller, more successful. Like, look at that. You're wearing clothes that I can't afford.
You're
like,
confident enough to get up on stage and talk to strangers.
Right. Like, exactly. It's like, just in this first 30 seconds, you're above us.
Yeah. I have no connection with you whatsoever.
Right. So that's why, like, when, if a comic, like, quote unquote, like looks good, or is like looks successful or attractive, it's like, I don't know. I feel like in some ways it's harder for an audience to kind of identify and bond, like, I don't know.
Unless you're up there going, this is all I got. Looking good's all I got.
Right.
Let me tell you how deep my issues run.
Right. Or like, here's how fucked up I am, or whatever, But that vulnerability and that failing, that's where the stuff comes from,
Yeah. Like you said, if someone goes up there and they're all arrogant and cocky,
right?
Immediately, that's kind of an off-putting body language, persona. So you're immediately going to distance yourself from people. But you go up there and start talking about how you failed at this, you fucked up at that,
right?
What's wrong with you? That's something that we can all relate to, and it like you said, humanizes you.
To like a perfect analogy is like the old like Lucille Ball, where her and her friend are like in the chocolate factory and like they're trying
to eat them off the conveyor belts.
Everything's going wrong, right? It's like that right there. It's like if everything went smoothly, there would be no comedy. The humor is in
the conflict
and the failing, and like the too many chocolates or whatever, how did they deal with it? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Somebody comes up, whether it's Kramer or what do you call it, Sam on Cheer or whoever, like you have the character who comes up with some cockamamie scheme, right? Where they're going to, Cartman's going to do this, that, and the other thing or whatever. And it's like that human failure, right? That defect that causes the things to happen that like lead to the funny, not like if everybody made good decisions, no comedy's going to come from that.
Right.
Oh, well, I was hungry, so I went and I bought a sandwich and I paid for it just like you do. And that's that. Like, I mean, that's,
It was $5.95. I had exact change in my pocket.
Right.
There was no issues all day long.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's been my time. You guys have a great night. I hope everything goes smoothly for you too.
Right. It's only when the character decides he's going to try to pay with a coupon that he like designed himself on Photoshop and then like winds up like getting arrested or, like that's where the comedy comes in.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you. The vulnerability stuff is even, I can guarantee you for everything we've talked about, that's for at least for myself, that's been the most fascinating. Because it's cool to sort of open up a vein every now and again and just let some stuff out.
That's where the stuff is.
But I want to, obviously remind everyone who's listening that you are an outstanding comic. You're one of our favorites here at Absolute Comedy. You're definitely family. I want to give you an opportunity. You've got a comedy album out. Do you have two now?
I have one. I have a second one that I'm actually working on the artwork for.
Okay, so I knew you had. I thought there was a second.
I've actually got like a bunch of recordings that I still need to go through. Stuff that I'm just like material that I'm like I've already retired it, but I'm like I don't like I've retired this stuff, but I don't have like I don't have it on an album.
Right. Well, what's the name of your album that you have out already?
No Frills.
Okay.
And that's on, you can get it on like iTunes, CD Baby, my website, which is currently down, but you know, CD Baby is probably the best place to get it.
CD Baby.
Yeah, it's Mike Storck, no frills.
Awesome. And anything you got coming up that you want to plug? I do have listeners in Maryland. It might be very well be you.
YouTube. I'm doing most of my stuff on YouTube. You know, just putting videos up and stuff.
So anyways, I just wanted to thank you for being here, Mikey. I really appreciate it, pal.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you next time you're in town, buddy.
Awesome. Thank you.